Jake.
I'm Thom.
And we are VIMTV Velocities of Music, the best kept secret in music reviews. Thom!
Yes!
We don't often get to review artists who are not from the countries of the United States and the United Kingdom.
That's very true.
99% of the music we review, these albums come from artists who originate in those two countries. So, when we stumble upon an artist with an interesting sounding sound and album from places like South America, Argentina, per se, such as Juana Molina and her new album, Wed 21. That is something that I find very intriguing. I always enjoy reviewing these sort of albums.
Yeah.
So this is a very eclectic album and sound. When I first put this on, it was definitely a shock to my system. I was not expecting, such beat-driven, crazy sounds coming at me. Juana Molina, she's been around for a while. This is her 6th or 7th album now, and she does a lot of Radiohead-esque sort of material. But how would you describe Wednesday 21 or Wed 21?
Yeah, it sounds like something I should put on my calendar.
I know, right? It's a calendar event to me.
That's what I think. But in her native language, that's not what Wednesday.
No.
It wouldn't be Wednesday. I don't know what it means. That's what I'm trying to say. That's kind of the story behind that. But as far as the sound goes, it's got this alluring draw to it because you have, first off, a lot of vocal layers that are set up to create kind of odd, off-putting harmonies, which really creates a lot of mood. But they're being driven by, as you said, just very thick beats. This is very beat-oriented. She's using a lot of odd time signatures and rhythms.
Yes.
And the way they all come together, along with all these kind of strange, like clean guitar lines that also remind me a bit of Radiohead. I would say the Radiohead comparison is definitely apt, not in the entire sound, but influencing mainly the beat and the guitars.
Yes, and I would even take that one step further, and I'd go into the vocals as well.
Oh, yeah, very true.
Molina definitely is emulating Thom Yorke's vocal presence and how he, especially in later on Radiohead and his work with, and his solo work in Atoms for Peace. I really feel like her vocals, the way she's just like layering them and presenting them as just a very clean, kind of haunting sort of belt out, it definitely reminds me of Thom Yorke.
That element is definitely there. When it comes together into the whole sound, though, I would put this in that genre of kind of female art rock / pop artists, like we reviewed Han Huckelberg.
Right.
I would put in there even like Julia Holter, which we reviewed earlier this year.
Except this is much more bright and poppy sounding, I would say.
It is. And I think even a lot of that is from the production. There's two artists I named there dealt a lot more with kind of found sound and almost like neoclassical.
Yeah.
This is not structured to be that kind of album at all. It's more track by track. It's just about how the ideas are being presented, how they're being layered, and how they're being produced.
Yeah, and the number one thing that drives these songs for me was the bass. There's a lot of just really, really colorful bass riffs throughout this album that provide the foundation for a lot of these tracks. Whether that bass is just very clean sounding or produced to have some sort of fuzz on it. There's a wide variety. Most of the tracks on this album, though, have a bass part that you can really get into if that's what you're looking for. Another thing that she does often is she'll come up with some sort of like electronic melody. Maybe nothing that's that long. She just loops it like you're running on a treadmill. And then that just plays over and over again throughout the entire song. And then she comes in and adds instruments, beats on top of that, and eventually her vocals. And so you'll have that formula that this song just keeps building and building and doing what's kind of just this contorted beat of how the beat and the bass and the melodies that she's looping mix in with the vocals. It's that arrangement that causes this sense of tension, and I think that's the whole design of what she's going for on Wed 21.
Yeah, I totally agree. There is an elephant in the room here that we have to tackle, and that is the fact that a majority of these lyrics are in a language that is not our native language.
Okay, we got to get through this.
And we got to address that, because that naturally is going to affect your listening experience.
Totally will.
And especially on an album that is very moody like this, I can't help but think, how would my listening experience be changed if I understood what she was actually saying and what these songs were about, what they represented thematically.
It actually, so like, for those of you who aren't living in the United States of America, I feel like Americans take this really stupid attitude towards learning other languages, and we have this ethnocentrism that we feel that all other people who live in the United States should learn English as their language. And I think that's totally silly. Now, living in Iowa, I don't have this huge, for the most part, everyone is English speaking here.
We're in Iowa.
And there's not this demand that I need to go out and learn a foreign language. Spanish would be the first language that I would learn, and then I could understand this language. language and understand this album a lot more than what I do, because I really feel like, I mean, this album made me think at times, man, it would be so cool to learn this language and understand what Juana Molina is actually trying to do. I really feel like some of her lyrics are probably pretty crafty if they, with the level of care and craft that she put into everything else in this sound, I would expect the lyrics to follow suit.
I totally agree. I mean, you listen to the level of detail in this album, all the instrumentals, no matter what apparatus she happens to be using to create that sound and that mood, you can tell that her choice was very specific.
Yeah.
And I have to imagine that she's putting that much detail into the lyrics as well. So it's like, you know, I just wish that I knew what the hell she was saying.
And that's something I would challenge you guys to. If you do speak Spanish and can tell us of what these lyrics are and give us some, you know, translations and examples, I would actually really appreciate that, because it would certainly enhance the listening experience for me. Now, getting back to what we do understand, which is how she's constructing these songs, the instruments that she's using, and the general ideas pushing the sound. I would say that my major criticism of WED 21 is the fact that this does seem to follow a pretty basic formula, which I described earlier, of just how she's layering these looping bass parts and synth melodies, and then adding in the guitar and adding in beats and then adding in her vocals on top of it. These songs never reach this, like, climax point to where there's just these huge dynamic contrasts. It's just very much one idea. The problem with that, it's actually a pretty neat approach, but it's just, I mean, there's a 12-track album and at least 6 to 8 of these songs follow that formula, and they're very similar. So I had a tendency to favor the front half of the album when those ideas were more fresh than the back half of the album when I've heard the same idea regurgitated a few times. I feel like she didn't stray from that general idea. Now, there's certain tracks on here that do stray from that idea that are very, very different in sound to me. They seem to be a bit more aggressive. They seem to have different melody usages. I just really feel like she went and kind of reached for the moon on some of these tracks, and where she didn't have that inspiration, she relied on this formula. And that makes this listen a bit disjointed for me once I'm 5-6 listens into this album.
I totally agree. And for me, it was even less about that formula in song structure or anything like that, and more about that formula and just the sound she was using. Because at first it was so alluring and it was so fresh, and then about halfway through the album, I realized that it was using a lot of the same kinds of sounds in the beats, a lot of the same kind of guitar style, and while it's a very nice blend, I think that overusing it throughout the album can make it get a little bit stale by the
Absolutely.
end. I still think it's very impressive what she's doing, but it just diluted itself a little bit for me.
I mean, it's still a really unique listening experience. This is something that you're not going to find every day. And I found, especially with the first few listens, that I was very intrigued with her sound and how she was approaching the music. It was fun listening to this album, and there's a lot of virtue in that sentiment.
Yeah.
So I really feel like there's a lot of good things about WED 21. It's just that after I get to successive listens and the real comeback quality of an album, which is something that I do think about when we score an album and recommend it to you guys, is how is it staying power? Does it make me want to keep listening to this for the rest of time? There are certain albums that just sweep me away, and I still can't get enough of them. A lot of them are highly rated on this channel. Every year we come up with these new albums that I know are just I'm going to listen to forever. Unfortunately, I don't think WED 21 is one of those albums. It does a lot of really good things, but it's just repetitive nature in the structure of some of the tracks. It just brings it down a notch for me. I'm going to go 72 on this one.
I'm going 74.
So, low 70s means there's a lot of really good things on this album that you would probably like if you gave WED 21 a chance. However, there's probably some things on this that aren't going to make it the best album you've ever heard. However, still a good album. We'd love to get your feedback on Juana Molina's WED 21, and if you guys do have any insight as to the lyrics and what they mean, and some even could quote some examples, I would absolutely love that feedback. Please leave us a comment at www.velocitiesandmusic.com or youtube.com/velocitiesandmusic. As always, follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and let us know what albums you'd like to see us review on this YouTube channel. I'm Jake.
I'm Thom.
And we are VIMTV, moving music critique forward.
Era una pata como ancla que son